What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. And as you can see, we are back with another video. And today we are going to react to 2024. I have to remember it. It's 2024 now. Australian Open men's singles draw. Now, before the draw, as a typical tennis fan, I was thinking about, well, what is the easiest scenario? What is the toughest scenario? What is the easiest draw, toughest draw, blah, blah, blah. And as I was thinking about the easiest and toughest path to the final for Novak, I can realize that doesn't really matter because the draw is really balanced. This is the most balanced ATP list slash draw that I've seen in a really long time because I think the ATP list in 2024 January almost 100% accurately reflects the actual standings of the tennis players. The only thing that I would kind of change in the rankings right now is to put Dimitrov in the 5 to 8 category, and I'm not even sure who would I take out. Do I take out Tsitsipas because he's out of form? Do I take out Rune because he never did anything at majors? Do I take out Rublev because he's kind of limited? I certainly would not take out Zverev because I think Zverev is the clear number 5 guy right now, although he's ranked number 6, but he's in the 5 to 8 area. So that's the only thing that I would change. I think the rankings are almost perfect. And one more important thing is that quite often we have majors in which we have three favorites. And that kind of sucks because somebody, the number one or the number two guy, is going to get the number three guy. And then the other guy is getting the number four guy who actually might not even make it until the semifinal. And even if he does, he's just not on that level. So that happened, for example, in the 2021 US Open, if you remember. Novak was going for 28 out of 28. I almost used an Australian accent there, 28. He was going for 4 out of 4. And he got Zverev in the semifinals instead of Tsitsipas, and everybody knew that Zverev, Medvedev, and Novak are the main three guys on that tournament. And Tsitsipas was out of form back then. His form dropped after the 2021 Roland Garros final. He was out, I think, in round one of Wimbledon versus Tiafoe, although of course Tiafoe is a difficult opponent, especially on grass. But yeah, I mean, everybody kind of knew that Tsitsipas was not in good form, and somebody was going to get Zverev, who's in form, and somebody was going to get Tsitsipas, who's out of form. So that happens quite often in men's tennis. Three major favorites. But I think this year is just perfect. Novak is the number one favorite. Alcaraz is number two favorite. And then Sinner Medvedev, you can debate. I would personally pick Medvedev as the number three favorite. I know a lot of guys would say, well, Sinner beat Novak twice in the past 2 months, blah, blah, blah. I think Medvedev has more experience, has more stamina, and he's just a nastier opponent to Novak. I mean, I am aware that Sinner beat him twice, but Medvedev, when he goes out, serves 80%, he's just unplayable. He's just so, I mean, if you would combine Medvedev and Berrettini, like if you would give Berrettini's forehand to Medvedev, Medvedev would be in the GOAT conversation because this guy, I mean, to be 6'6", to defend so well, to hit the backhand so well, to serve so well, that's expected. And then, just to not have the devastating forehand is kind of just weird. But if he would have that, he would be real nasty. But what I'm trying to say that Medvedev, in my opinion, is really just a war, just a dogfight to play against when he's playing well. Because man, you will have to serve well against Medvedev when he's serving well, because the pressure is on you. Well, enough for Medvedev and Sinner so far. So as you pretty much understood what I'm trying to say, top four guys are the top four favorites. The top eight guys are the top eight favorites, basically minus Dimitrov. The top 16 guys are the top 16 favorites. So the draw is really balanced. Now, let's look at the actual draw here. Novak gets a qualifier in the first round, which is decent. Second round seems to be quite straightforward. And then the third round, well, I will make a separate video on this because I swear to God, since Andy Murray came back from his injury, he not only did not play Novak, but they were not drawn together in the same half of the draw. Like, yes, probably once or twice they actually did. But the statistical odds to just never come in the same part of the draw, that is ridiculous. So this is the first time, in my opinion, that there is a actual decent chance that Murray and Novak actually play because I swear to God, it's kind of the curious thing. Like they never are in the same part of the draw. I think Curious was maybe in the quarterfinal section once in Australian Open like 1 or 2 years ago. But besides that, it's just what the hell? Well, it certainly wasn't 2 years ago because Novak got deported. So it was last year, I think. But it's just never. It never happens. It's only in the final section. So that's why they don't play. So same with Andy. So actually do research and make a video on this and do some math. Echeverry, I mean, what can you say? You have guys from 24 to 32. Who is the toughest guy to play here? Horda, maybe Sebastian, because my name is Sebastian and he's kind of a decent player. He probably has the highest ceiling out of these eight guys. Muzetti's kind of out of form. Struve can be decent, but kind of limited. Greek Sport is a good player. Felix is completely out of form, maybe slightly coming back. So, I mean, don't really have a dangerous opponent here. So I think Echeverry is, decent. Monfils, I think so. The funniest thing is Andy might not make the third round because he's going to play a 5 hour match versus Echeverry, and then he's probably going to play a 5 hour match versus either Monfils or Hanfman. So I mean, he might not make it in the third round. Anyways, this is an interesting section of the draw. I have no idea who's going to come out of it, but I think they're going to be really tired with Novak. So I think Novak first 3 rounds kind of easy. Fourth round, we have Ben Shelton. We have the beef, we have the drama, but Ben Shelton has to make the fourth round, and of course Novak has to make the fourth round. We had them together in Paris. I think they were supposed to play actually in the third round, but Shelton didn't make it up there. He does have a difficult opponent. Now I'm not sure what is Roberto Batista's Agut's current form. I was really following him, but that can be a really annoying match, pain in the ass for Ben Shelton. I'm not sure if Christian Garin is back or not, but that also can be a difficult match for Ben Shelton. And then Monterey, it's so weird. Like you have two lefties, and it's the OP high power Ben Shelton versus Monterino who puts you to sleep because his shots are so slow. It's just that would be a really interesting match, Monterino Shelton. That I would actually watch. That would be a hilarious match. Lefty versus lefty, high power versus low power, low pace lefty. And then you of course have Stan here. So this part of the draw is also really interesting. And the winner here, well, I have no idea who's going to come out. I think some guys are just like scared of Shelton because he's just, high power, explosive momentum guy. But my God, did you ever watch Novak play? Do you understand that those guys who have big serve, big forehands, I mean, he just feasts on those guys. He'll almost never lose to guys who are one dimensional. Like, let's say Taylor Fritz. Big serve, big forehand. That's all he can do. And yes, you will get certain amount of success with big serve, big forehand. Berrettini, for example. But it's just big serve, big forehand. Novak is just tactically superior. He's going to, push your backhand. He's going to outthink you, outmuscle you, outgrind you. I mean, to be afraid of these guys like Ben Shelton, I think you're kind of weird. Like you haven't watched Novak for the past 15 years. So I don't think that Ben Shelton is a dangerous opponent. The toughest opponent here would be Grigor Dimitrov, but Novak kind of owns Dimitrov. I think right now it's 11-1 head to head, and Dimitrov didn't beat him in the past 10 years. So I mean that would be the toughest opponent. Like last year, Dimitrov was easily the toughest opponent in the third round that Novak could have gotten, and he actually got him. And it was three tight sets. That was quite possibly the toughest match in that tournament. But yeah, especially considering the injury and the round in which they played. But let's continue the quarterfinal section. Now, as you can see, you got Tsitsipas, but Tsitsipas has to get there. Tsitsipas, I don't know what to think about him. He's out of form, but he always does well in Australia. So I'm not really sure. I mean, quarterfinal is decent. If he gets Tsitsipas, that's decent. That is the replay of the last year's final. I won't be, too disappointed. But I'm not really sure what to think about Tsitsipas. Why does he do so well in Australia and so shit in America? Like, why? Makes no sense in my opinion. He has a tough opponent, Matteo Berrettini, and then Jordan Thompson possibly, which is also going to be difficult. Von Ash quite possibly going to be a factor here, and Musetti. I do not think that Musetti's in form. I saw him. I saw the highlights versus Bublik, so I think he blew a match point, and I think he's kind of out of form. So we will see. We will see. I think Tsitsipas. Might get there, might not. And you have Taylor Fritz here. You have Marjan Cilic. That's an interesting match. Marjan, I mean, I think this year somebody like Marjan, somebody like Wanash, somebody like that, young guys might do something in Australia this year. Early part of the season might, we might see a new quarterfinalist. Anyways, I'm not really sure who's going to make the quarterfinals here. I think Tsitsipas is the slight favorite, but there are a couple of landmines here. Anyways, Novak Tsitsipas quarterfinal is decent in my opinion. Not gonna complain. Okay, let's just not ramble about this too much. Let's continue to Yannick Sinner. So Yannick Sinner is the drawn up potential Novak Djokovic semifinal opponent. And as I mentioned, I prefer Sinner over Medvedev. I am perfectly aware that a lot of guys will say that Medvedev is the easiest opponent, potential opponent for Novak. But, you know, just yes, you can beat Novak twice in the best of three, blah, blah, blah. But, Medvedev is a grinder. He has experience. He's a Grand Slam champion. He is a proven winner, and he actually beat Novak in the best of five. So, you have to respect Medvedev here. Surrogates Botik van den Zandschulp, one of my favorite names on the ATP Tour. I think he was the quarterfinalist of the 2021 US Open, and he is the only guy who won a set versus Medvedev on that tournament, actually. The draw is decent. As I mentioned, everybody kind of got the same draw. Nothing out of order, nothing too difficult. He'll have to face the explosive player in Tiafor Khachanov most likely in the fourth round, and that will be a test because Sinner has had some bad Grand Slam losses. So certainly he has to pay attention to these players, and of course the informed Alex de Minaur, Jerry can also be dangerous. Maybe this is the year in which he kind of peaks in Grand Slams. Seb Korda is low-key a dark horse here. He might do something. He has a pretty decent draw, as I can see. Yeah, he is drawing into Rublev in the fourth round. And then can Rublev finally get over the hump, the quarterfinal hump? If he does everything well, he's going to have some difficult opponents in Seb Korda and Alex Deminor. But then he's drawing most likely into Yannick Sinner. So can he finally beat a guy who's ranked above him, who's maybe better than him? But it's not a Grand Slam champion, so this is going to be interesting to see. Can Rublev finally get over the hump if he gets to the hump? When it comes to my predictions, I mean, Sinner is too informed to lose early, so I think that maybe it is actually. No, I think I'll pick the boring choice. I'll go with Rublev and Sinner. And I'll go with Rublev actually. Fuck it. Fine. I will go with Rublev going into his first major semifinal in a four-setter versus Yannick Sinner. I don't know why. I'm just going with Rublev. Maybe he's going to be out by round three, but I'm just going with Rublev. So I have Novak versus Rublev in the semifinal here. Now let's go to Daniil. Daniil is down here. I just don't like it when the highest seeded guy is down here. Why didn't you just put him here? Like it's kind of weird. Uh Daniil gets a pretty good draw. He gets Felix in the third round. I think that's decent for him. And then he gets Dimitrov in the fourth round. I have a weird feeling that they always play early in the tournament. I don't know why. Maybe it's the recency bias because they did actually play a couple of times. I think they played in Wimbledon, they played in Paris, and they played in the tournament before that. So I feel that they are kind of always playing each other early in the tournament. And certainly Daniil won't be ecstatic when it comes to this draw and seeing Dimitrov number 13 in the fourth round because Dimitrov actually beat him a couple of times. I think their head to head is 6-3 for the nil. So this is possibly going to be a difficult draw. But you also have Davidovich Fokina, who can be a nasty opponent. I mean, Dimitrov has to watch out. Fucsovics in the first round is not that straightforward. Kokinakis is going to have the crowd if he gets there. So it's not even that easy for Dimitrov to get there. But certainly Medvedev Dimitrov in the fourth round is going to be an interesting matchup. Now, on the other side, we have Rune, who might get Jera here and also Nishioka in the first round. So that's not that easy. Jerry is a borderline seeded player and the only guy who actually won sets versus Novak at the 2023 Australian US Open. Greek sport, okay, and then you have Horka Chumber. So it's not that it's not that horrible for Rune. I saw somebody talking about like Rune's draw is really hard, but Greek sport is a good player, improving player. Safiulin might get there. He's a good unseeded player, and also Phils. Yeah, when I think about it, Phils, might do something. He's a young guy going up in the rankings, this may be his chance. So yeah, I mean, Rune's drop, it's kind of 50-50. This part's kind of okay. So when I think about it, well, does Rune get here? I'm not really sure. Maybe I go with Arthur Fils, actually. Yeah, so I will go with Fils versus. Did Umber got injured? I'm not really sure. This is an interesting Chang. I think if Umber is healthy, it may be Phils versus Umber, and I will go with Phils. I will go with Phils going into the quarterfinal versus is it Dimitrov or Medvedev? Ooh. Wow, this is a tough one. This is a tough one. It's weird because Medvedev didn't play any warm-up tournaments. He should be the okay. I will go with a boring choice. I will go with Medvedev versus Fils in the quarterfinals. So that's, I mean, that's a half boring choice. Okay. And we have Alcaraz, who got unfortunate to get Sasha Zverev in the quarterfinals. But first, does he get there? So I saw a lot of guys talking about, well, Novak had an easy draw and Alcaraz got Gasquet. Dude, Gasquet is like 55 years old. His hairline is done. He's half retired. He cannot move. The only thing he can do is hit a beautiful backhand here and there. But my God, I think that's an easier opponent than to play a qualifier guy. But it doesn't really matter because both of them are going to beat, Gasquet and the qualifier guy respectively. So it doesn't really matter. Alcaraz, I mean, Dan Evans in the second round. Dan Evans is an annoying guy to play because he has that back and slice, and he's just always there in the point. Is that like the British style of tennis? You have Nori, who's just always there in the point, cannot hit a winner against him, playing low pace balls. You have Dan Evans playing a similar style. You have the ultra defensive Andy Murray. Like, is that the British style of tennis? But when I think about it, you have Jack Draper, who's like a really explosive lefty. So it's just kind of weird to think about it. But anyways, maybe a subject for a different video. Dan Evans maybe can take a set from Alcaraz. I mean, he did win a set versus him, I think, in America at the US Open. They played in the third round back then. Yeah, back then Evans was actually seeded. And then Bublik. So, if you're an Alcaraz fan, maybe you're afraid of Bublik, right? Bublik, this weird guy. Maybe he plays really well. Maybe he's going to be really explosive in mood that day. Maybe he gets the crowd behind him. So that's going to be interesting. Does Bublik get the crowd behind him versus Alcaraz? But I think if you're Alcaraz, you are not really afraid of these super explosive players because you're a super explosive player. You kind of want to go bang bang with these guys. It's almost like you're not going to be afraid of a guy who's going to outplay you because you are going to outplay him. You have a better forehand. You have the most explosive forehand. You have better volleys. You have better trick shots. So I don't think that Alcaraz should be afraid of Bublik. I think this is a fairly good matchup with him. And then Tommy Paul, they have some history. They played some matches. Tommy Paul actually beat him once, and they played some tight matches. And also, you have to consider the fact that Alcaraz hasn't won anything after Wimbledon 23. So he did play, I think, one or two finals. I'm not really sure, but he didn't really have much success. So I think that Tommy Paul, quite, kind of maybe a difficult opponent. Based on their history, it can be interesting, but Tommy Paul has to get there. He has Jack Draper, he has Jan Lennart Struff. I mean, if he's in form, he might get there. It's going to be interesting to see. So I definitely have Tommy Paul versus Carlos Alcaraz, and then Zverev. Quite good draw for Zverev, as I can see. No, no, not much of a landmine here. Lehechka, who's dangerous if unseated, but if he's seated, I mean, he's kind of there. Then Nori, Lajovic, Varillas, Rude. I mean, does Rude even get there? The draw seems favorable for him. I mean, okay, I'm gonna just have a weird pick. Casper Ruud will not make the final. He will not lose in the second round. He will lose in the fourth round to Sasha Zverev. So I have Zverev versus Ruud here, and I have Tommy Paul versus Alcaraz here. I have Alcaraz winning in four. I do not actually think that Tommy Paul can beat Carlos Alcaraz well, he can, but in best of five, it's kind of a bit different. And then Zverev versus Alcaraz. What do I think? Well, last time they played, did Zverev beat him? Yeah, he beat him in indoors, best of three. Is Zverev that bad? Is this going to be the signature win? I'm not really sure. It's kind of weird. I do not know what to think of Carlos Alcaraz because, as I said, he didn't win a single tournament after Wimbledon 23. He is on a quite of a downswing. Not sure. I don't know what to pick here. I mean, my gut says Alcaraz. My heart says Zverev, which is kind of weird. Or maybe is it the other way? My gut says Zverev, the heart says Alcaraz. I'm not really sure what to think. So, who does Daniil play in the semifinal? Alcaraz or Zverev? And then Novak versus Rublev on the other side. I'm not really sure. Anyways, let me know in the comment section. I will not make my complete predictions because I'm not really sure. Well, if you put a gun to my head, I have Novak in the final versus Medvedev. Okay, I have Novak versus Medvedev in the final simply because the winner here is going to be a bit more tired than Daniil, and I have Novak beating Daniil in 4 sets in the final. So that's my prediction. But what's going to happen here? I'm not really sure. How will the draw pan out? Maybe Tommy Paul is a factor here. When I think about it, out of the main four favorites, Alcaraz does have the most difficult draw because starting from round four, Tommy Paul has some history against him, and then Zverev in the quarters, and then possibly Medvedev in the semifinals. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch this tournament. As you can see, I'm not really sure about every single one of the predictions, but I do have Novak winning the tournament. So let me know in the comment section what do you think, who will win the Australian Open, and what will be the, let's say, the quarterfinal fixtures. Okay, guys, see you in a couple of days, couple of hours. I'm not sure.